Biggest mistakes made in financial planning. A legal disclaimer we put at the beginning of all of our presentations. This information is for general and educational use only. Content is not intended to substitute for professional, legal, or clinical advice. We strive to keep our information as accurate and timely as possible, but make no promises and guarantees it works for your local unique situation. So some of the things to think about with mistakes in financial planning is the failure to set clear and achievable goals. The big mistake, people are vague. They just say, well, I'll save later. They don't give an amount. They don't have a retirement date. They don't have goals for buckets and dreams and a vision board and a plan. They just are like, I'm going to save more money to become wealthy. And these very vague, and it's even the same way in planning anything, whether it's a business, it's life, it's doing stuff. You want to be objective as much as possible. You want to set specific goals and specific timelines. And obviously goals can pivot and change. You can't predict all of a sudden needing to pull into your emergency account, but that's why it's there. So you've got to refill it. So it's going to ebb and flow, but you're still going to have, how do I retire at 40? How do I retire at 50, 60? How do I make X amount of money passively come in? You've got to make a strategic plan. Here's your end goal, and then you reverse engineer it. So you have a step-by-step roadmap to make what you want happen. So it's problematic because anything in life, if it's vague, just like with weight loss, like, oh, I want to lose some weight. Okay. Versus I want to lose 30 pounds by 8 months. This is how many calories I need to do. I need to cut this much out of my diet. I need to exercise this much. The more specific you can make a plan, the more likely it is to happen. Ignoring the importance of emergency accounts. So many people are like, I'll figure it out. And they don't save for an emergency. They'd rather use that money somewhere. Maybe they have to. Maybe they're so tight and drowning they can't save an emergency account at this point. But it's habits. It's changing things. Like that peace of mind, that cushion, an emergency account happens. Because otherwise you make rash decisions. You have to sell something quickly at a fraction of the cost to pay for things. If all of a sudden you can't work and you have no disability and you have no emergency account, some people get in a position they have to force to sell their house. They have to force to live with their kids. They have to force to cut corners and have one vehicle versus two, never take a vacation again. Like, I don't want you to be in that situation where because you didn't have an emergency account, you didn't have a cushion, other things are going to get pulled from when those emergencies occur. Not starting early enough with planning. Procrastination, it's that instant gratification. Like you'll just say, okay, I don't need to do it at 18. I've got lots of time. And then you don't think about it in your mid-20s. And then when you start having kids, life gets busy and crazy. And then when you finally start thinking about it in your late 30s, early 40s, you've lost so much time of compounding opportunities to make it so much easier. And I try to ingrain in my kids, like from the very beginning, helping them to be more successful with the tools that are out there and what I can do for them and the education and the habits to create. So hopefully they can do a better job than I did and that the average person does. The longer you push off saving and contributing, it's just so much harder to play catch up. So failing to diversify your investments, your risk, like too many people do a 401k, a 403b, and that's the only bucket they have. Their employer doesn't match. And then when retirement happens, their taxes are crazy high. It's in the stock market. The stock market tanks. They're living based on an unpredictability. If they had $1 million in the stock market and now it's in a week 50% down, you just lost half your retirement. Like diversify everything in your life, your business, your revenue streams, your investment streams. Like there's each bucket has different risk and different tax write-offs and different regulatory rules. So like I talk a lot, stocks, bonds, mutual funds is what most people are familiar with, but they're, in my opinion, the more risky assets because I can't control them. They're heavily manipulated. It's not as safe and secure as mutual funds, as bonds, as people think. Like I am all about diversifying. Okay, I'll put a little bit in some of these accounts because I want a Roth account. I want to pay the taxes now. I want to have some tax deferred money. And then once it builds up, I'll keep it in stocks, bonds, and then I'll convert it over to real estate. I'll convert it over to certain other things that I have a little more autonomy over. So you want to diversify, you want to expand your risk, you want to, some people, even the extent of keeping just money in the US, people are realizing, especially during inflation stages, some currencies are a little more stable than others. And so as people get higher and higher in the knowledge base and the strategies for financial planning, their diversification takes it to the next level. Diversification of citizenship, like you start realizing your risk with one citizenship as you start learning and growing, and history. So like there's diversification of risk of everything. You want to spread out, like I talk about it with food. You want to have some of your food come from the grocery store, but you also want to have some canned food. You want to have some processed box food. You want to have some dehydrated food. You want to have some water. You want to diversify your risk. So all of a sudden, if the grocery store and you can't have a garden because it's the winter time, you have somebody diversification of risk in every aspect of your life, not just in investment. Underestimating the importance of retirement savings. Like most people do this. So like it's not hitting you now. Like I give the example with food. I was like, oh man, if they created a diet pill that as soon as you ate something greasy and bad for you, you started having diabetes and you started having high blood sugars and hyper glycemic shock and started having heart problems, that heart attack that's going to come years down the road, we would look at things very differently. Like if you could have something with retirement planning that, oh, it hurts every time you use that credit card and you purchase something, you can feel that older you dying sooner. Like you can just feel that decision you're making right now with that money, and you feel better. All of a sudden you stick it in a savings account, you stick it into a retirement bucket, and you can feel the benefits sooner. It makes it easier. So we have to trust the plan. We have to trust the peace of mind. We have to trust the long-term planning, because there's a big difference. Like you and the person next to you are going to look exactly the same at 18 that saves and doesn't save. But when you turn 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, the opportunities that both of you have, the opportunities of working until you die versus retiring early, traveling, having the best health and resources and opportunities, and finding your life's passion versus you work till you die, like there's a compounding direction people go in because of the retirement savings and strategies that they don't implement soon enough. Neglecting to plan for taxes. Like it's not just putting money away for a rainy day and putting money away for a retirement. Each bucket pulls out differently. So a health savings account is my favorite. If you have a high deductible insurance plan, it's not just a tax-free bucket in and a tax-free bucket out for medical expenses. You'll never find anything that is as good for taxes, for health benefits. And then if you don't use it, you can roll it over and people can save. In retirement, medical expenses are your most expensive thing. If you can have tax-free in and tax-free out for medical expenses, save up that bucket, even if you don't need it now and you don't use it when you're the healthiest as possible. It has immense value to you later. Having a Roth account where you pay the taxes now, and then as long as you wait till 59 and a half, at least 5 years, you follow the rules, it grows tax free. And so that's a different bucket to pull out of based on where the market is and taxes are. If you're just putting in 401ks and 403bs that are tax deferred only, you're cornered, you're stuck. If you need the money, you're paying whatever the interest rate is. You're taking out of a bucket that's the only bucket you have to pull from. Relying too much on debt. Like I think too many times with that instant gratification, I want a nice house, I want an SUV, I want all these great things, I want to go to the movies, I want to go on vacation, I want to do things, and they put it on debt, and then they have to work way harder for it long term, and then they're in a corner. Yes, I went on that vacation, but that vacation cost me double because we put it on the credit card. My house, like if you could save up, like it used to be, you would save up cash and pay for school and pay for houses, and you can't do that anymore. If you wait to save up the money for a house, you'll never buy a house. So this vicious cycle happens that you need to make good decisions with debt. Buying a house is very different. You need a roof over your head. Renting is more expensive than buying, versus a vacation, versus a luxury item. Like purchasing things above and beyond your means and then getting cornered with all this debt it's very crippling and struggling. So you need to be able to breathe, and you have emergency accounts and live within your means. And so maybe it's getting a smaller vehicle, a used vehicle. Maybe it's downsizing a house. Maybe it's relocating to an area with a lower cost of living. Like, there's so many things you can do to help with not being drowned in your debt. Not seeking professional help when it's needed. This is a huge mistake people make. Like, I'm embarrassed. I want to just do it myself. Those financial planners are corrupt and they only take care of the rich and they're not going to help me. And I had a bad experience with a financial planner and I lost a bunch of money and I paid all these fees, and you just have all these stigmas and biases you tell yourself. But I want you to understand business and finances, but you're not going to be the expert of all the changes and the regulations and the games and the tools and everything that's out there. You're going to want a financial planner, multiple professionals on your team. You're going to want consultants. You're going to want accountants and lawyers and financial planners that have different areas of expertise to help you with your short and long-term goals. A lot of people our human nature is reactive versus proactive. So wanting to pay for insurance and taking that risk, like, okay, it's 1 in 1,000 chance, I'm going to take the risk. But then when it happens to you, it cripples your plan. Like life insurance, or like, my chances of dying are so low, but it's for your family. Like, if it is that 1 in a million, do you want to take the risk that you're leaving as a midwife? Especially, a lot of us are breadwinners. Do you want to leave your partner and your children that are financially dependent on you with nothing after you pass away? Like, disability insurance, like, a lot of midwives are like, oh, the chances of me not being able to work are so slim, so I don't need disability insurance. I don't need long-term. And I can tell you example. I've got dozens of stories of midwives across the country that were making $500,000, living the dream life, big house, living great, never saved for retirement savings, disability, got in a car accident, lost everything, bankruptcy, living in their kids' house because they're cornered. When you can't, as a midwife, when you're exchanging your skills and your body and your time for money, and all of a sudden that stops, you need to have a backup plan. You need to have a cushion. That's why passive income streams are great. Like, my goal is to get to a passive income stream quickly that covers my expenses. So if all of a sudden I slip and fall and something happens, I don't need that disability insurance anymore. So there's certain benchmarks you hit. Reduce your risk. You're never going to be able to get 100% of the risk out. I'll give you the example of my parents and their large rental portfolio. These houses are worth $17,000 each. To get house insurance on each of them was like $300 a month, and in 3 years they paid for the house. Like, it was insanity. So my parents decided to take the risk. We're going to keep an emergency bucket for those few houses that need repairs. If heaven forbid it burns down, the passive income from the other ones will absorb that. Well, we had 3 summers ago a 500-year flood and a dam broke, and my parents almost lost everything because of that extreme rare situation. Their $5 million portfolio would have been lost. Like, they didn't plan for a fluke weather event to lose everything. They planned for that risk of, one burns, that chance and probability. So, like, there's no 100% risk of everything. Is just, we have to decide. When we get in a car, we can get in a car accident. When we decide to do things, we always have to think about the risk and benefits to every decision that we make. And especially with our financial plans, like, you have to look at your personal situation, where you want to go, what are your holes that could crumble your plan, could hurt your family, could hurt you, and tapering things. Like, for example, most people have house insurance because they can't replace the cost of a house. Like, we sold our big house, split our parcel, we're living in a simple cabin. I don't have house insurance on my $30,000, $50,000 cabin because I can replace it if something happens to it because it's within my means. So I don't need house insurance. So you have to look at that certain situation of insurances and risk and your personal situation and what makes the most. So to avoid these common financial mistakes, you want to start early. You want to keep updated with the trends happening with finances and rules and the market and the economy. You want to set clear, objective goals and adjust them and review them. And are you following it? Are you ahead of curve? Are you behind curve? Did something happen outside of your plan you can't control? I need to adjust my plan. You want to diversify your investments and your skills so that you reduce your risk in life in general. You want to seek professional help. You want to treat your financial plan. It's not something you just make and done. It's an ongoing, evolving document that you should be reviewing in the beginning monthly, and then it starts becoming quarterly, biannually, and then annually. Once you get a little more stability and consistency and things in your life aren't fluctuating so much, then you can space it out a little bit. So as an overall conclusion, there's so many mistakes that people make with financial planning. And I think the biggest ones are not starting early and having clear, realistic goals, create a roadmap, create a vision board, create a strategic plan. The example I give with business planning and financial planning is you're trying to get to a certain address without GPS. How, if you've never been there before, do you expect to get to that house without a map, without some direction? Like, your financial plan, your planner is your GPS guide. You need that to get to where you want to go. I have no idea how you're going to get to an address you've never been to before without a plan and without some direction and guidance. Too many people just go on autopilot with their plans. They have instant gratification. They push off retirement. They don't look at their risk. They're more of a proactive versus reactive approach. They don't think about taxes and the buckets to put into and the strategies that are out there. There's a foresight. There's a flexibility. There's a risk ratio based on your personality that's going to impact your financial plan. So there's a lot of things to think about, but once you start doing it, it's actually fun and you start seeing the compounding impact of these habits and changes. It creates a rewarding impact, like, oh my gosh, I can retire in 20 years, 10 years. I am creating these passive incomes. Look, I get to slowly work 40 hours a week versus 60 hours a week. Oh my gosh, I get to switch to part-time. Oh my goodness, we get to do an extra vacation because of da-da-da-da-da. Like, you start seeing how these habits are having positive reinforcement in your life, and that's what we want to change.